and welcome back to Advanced Behavioral Health's Mental Health Podcast, Making a Difference in Mental Health. I am your host, Danielle Young, and we are in our second episode of our new series for self-care for the month of July. We have a very special guest, Mr. Tracy Peal, who is a movement specialist and coach. But before we get to Tracy, I just kind of want to say hi to my co-host. Hey, Wendy, how you doing?
Hi, Danielle. How are you? Hi, audience. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm glad to be here again as we talk more about self-care. But I want to give a big thanks to our ABH medical director, Dr. Leslie Baugh. She talked to us about the importance of medication and how it can be an integral part in self-care. So once again, thank you for that. That was great.
Absolutely. And so, Wendy, I wanted to talk about our special guest here. How long have you known Tracy?
Danielle, I knew you were going to ask me. I've known Tracy since birth. Tracy is my bigger brother, older brother, only brother, and he has had a career that involves personal training and fitness and coaching and self-care for over 35 years. So I'm really excited that he could take time out to talk to us about self-care.
Wow, 35 years. That is a long time. So, Tracy, can you tell our audience just a little bit about yourself and what exactly is a movement specialist and coach?
Well, Danielle, first I want to say thank you very much for inviting me here. And if you hear me say the word Chet, it's my word. So that's my nickname for her that I developed when I was a little kid. So I'll speak to Danielle and Chet when I'm answering your questions today. But I've been a movement coach not that long, relative to the amount of time I've been in the fitness business. So movement coaching for maybe the past 15 years. And the way I would describe it is that I'm more of a troubleshooter and problem solver with athletes. So many athletes come to me with issues. So they either have an injury or they have a movement problem, and I'm trying to break them out of their habits that are causing them to, have those issues, and then moving them more towards efficiency and economy and motion.
Wow, that sounds like I know that. You tried to do that with me when I was a runner. Okay. So how did you decide to get into being a movement specialist / coach?
I started as a personal trainer. My first client was in 1988 at a Nautilus facility. I kind of progressed a little bit in that business. Then I went back to grad school for exercise physiology. And when I came out, I just started working like the YMCA and for a company at the time called Body Architecture. So they got me involved with more personal training. I managed a gym during that time. And then I had an idea. My ex-wife was doing triathlon, and I wanted to be a triathlon coach. And in that certification process, a Russian sports scientist, Dr. Nicholas Romanov, was mentioned, and I kind of followed him, invited him up for a clinic, and he is a renowned biomechanist and physiologist, and I started to learn mechanics from him, and that kind of changed the course of my business.
So how do you see self-care in what you do, and how important is that in the work that you do with athletes or anyone?
When I'm dealing with athletes or people that are non-athletes that are injured, obviously that's the self-care part. I do body work on people to help them get through their issues. But when you're defining, self-care as an individual practicing health management and trying to control some of the factors that are affecting their well-being, it can bleed into like nutrition or sleep or physical exercise or stress management. So, even though I may be coaching most of the time, there are those other elements that seep into my business that I have to be aware of and help my athletes through those situations.
Wow, Tracy, you pointed out something that was really important. You said something about health management, and our podcast, we really focus on mental health. So how does your role impact mental health? The role of mental health, what does it play in your work that you do?
Most of my clients are teenage athletes. And so, I know you guys are very well versed in the issues teenagers have in today's America or today's world. And so with my athletes, self-care is really a lot of emotional and psychological well-being for them. It's having the confidence or self-confidence to perform and to, weather the ups and downs of performance. So sometimes, perform well and sometimes you don't so well. And so that affects, not only their well-being, but how they feel about themselves and their self-confidence. And so I have to, as a coach, work through those issues and be more of the, the person with the more level head in those situations and try to help them understand that in life as well as athletics, you will have those ups and downs, and you have to try to keep it more of a streamlined situation where you don't get too high, don't get too low, you keep everything really real, and then you kind of progress that way.
Right. Tracy, can I also ask a follow-up question with that? Because you said you mainly work with teens. And so
Yes.
I can imagine that the pandemic really impacted some of the teenagers that you work with. How did it impact their self-esteem or maybe even their desire to get out there to be engaged, to be able to interact with their peers from a sports perspective? I can only imagine what this past year has done for your teens. Can you kind of speak to that?
It's funny, most of them were a little bit upset by not being able to go to school because they didn't have the social interaction. They wanted to get out of the house. They didn't want to be home. I thought academically it was much more challenging for them to try to do everything online. So I think there was a frustration there. But, physicality or physical exercise is sometimes a great way to release that energy. And so I was actually, pretty busy through that time. And my clients were still wanting to go out and exercise and do the things they wanted to do. So even though they might have been a little bit down by the process of being home all the time, they were still engaged enough to want to come out and work out and train and those types of things. So mentally, I guess as long as they got out of the house, they were better. But they were a little more down when they were just home all the time and that thing. But on the flip side, I think a lot of families got closer. They decided to do more family-oriented things. So I think there was a benefit that way. But, for teenagers and young people, that time kind of runs out eventually where you're tired of your parents and you're tired of being in the house.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen that in our practice with our teen population. In the beginning, it was like, yes, I'm home. I don't have to go to school. This is the best thing ever. And then that wore thin quick, where teens became bored. They didn't log on for distance learning. So it's nice to hear that they had an avenue for sports to be able to get out there and kind of socialize and get out of the rut of being in the house.
Yeah, I think when seasons got postponed, that was more stressful to them and more disappointing to them because in the initial part of it, those initial seasons got moved or they got pushed back or they got canceled. And so I had some athletes going to college that didn't have their season. Kids that missed the season and now are doing the season now. So that part was probably really frustrating for them.
Yeah.
Everybody got through it and now we're here where we are. So.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, what happened with those students who were like in their senior year looking to do a sport in college and then the pandemic hit? Were they able to recover and get to where they need to go? How did that look?
Yeah, that was madness. The issue of it was recruitment because recruitment changed.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those athletes that were going to have, tournaments and places to go to get recruited, they didn't. Coaches couldn't come see athletes, so they had to, upload a lot of information or video files and hope the coach saw them. And usually those girls or guys that were being recruited early in the process were the ones that actually got the look. But I think in college it was even worse because they gave the seniors an extra year, so then they came back. Affect all the younger athletes coming in, the freshmen or sophomores or the new athletes and their ability to play based on the fact that the seniors had another year to compete. So it was a rough year all the way around. I had a lot of parents, frustrated by the process of trying to get their kids recruited or at least get them into college for athletics because everything changed in that dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that totally. I mean, even some of the kids, as Wendy has been saying, that we work with, some of our clients, that same impact of the pandemic pushing things, essentially a year off impacts even how you move forward with your, next stage of in life. And so,
Right.
wow, that's really interesting that you bring up even that dynamic of the high school to college and then the college on to professionalism. They still have to, some have the benefit and then some have to wait. So, wow, thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
So moving forward a little bit, what tips would you give our audience members who are kind of starting out exploring or re-exploring the importance of self-care? I know that the pandemic and people being at home and families being together drew people more to exercising from their home, buying exercise equipment, downloading videotapes, et cetera, et cetera. So how does that momentum keep going for people?
It was funny. I did notice a lot of people exercising during the pandemic. Everybody wanted to at least get out. So people were walking, running, a lot of bike riders. Obviously, a lot of people were getting like Peloton bikes at home to work out. People were downloading yoga and strength videos and all that stuff and doing that. And a lot of people in my profession, went online and started to do courses online or teaching online or classes online. My business is so specific, it's kind of hard for me to do that online. So I kind of still stayed in my normal realm, which is outside. So it's, sweating in the summer and freezing in the winter. But
I know how much you love that.
I love winter, right? So that allowed me to maintain. But, to your point about what people should do with self-care, I think what you should do initially is take a survey of your life. Like, are you happy? Are you satisfied? If not, why? Are you stressed? Do you exercise? Do you eat well? Do you sleep enough or sleep well? So I think the initial part of the self-care treatment would be a self-care evaluation or an evaluation of yourself and where you stand and what do you look for or looking for or how you want to see your life or imagine your life and what are the steps you're going to take to get there.
Wow, I am taking a lot of notes. Just to reiterate, taking a survey of your life, a self-care evaluation. Are you satisfied? Are you stressed? Look at your eating patterns. Look at your sleeping patterns. Let me just say this, Tracy. That's definitely something that I need to do because I gained the COVID-15. You know how they have the college 15 or the freshman 15? I gained the COVID-15 plus some. But definitely these are really good tips that not only our listeners can take, but us as hosts, things are opening back up slowly. And these are some things that I could definitely take a look at. As you know, we approach the summertime. Yeah.
Yes, and that's, bikini weather and swimsuit. And everybody wants to look good and everybody's back out again, that kind of thing. So, again, I think it's always, my job, it's always about evaluation. Athletes and clients come to me and I evaluate how they move, how they stand, their alignment, their posture, and I think you have to take that kind of philosophy to life. I think what happens is people get so caught up in their day-to-day activity that they don't stop and take a breath and take a survey of what's going on in their life and try to redirect in ways that they can. So to me, self-care is so important because that's the initial step. You're taking the time to look at where you are and then trying to, progress from there or move from there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wendy, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I love the fact that you call yourself a problem solver, troubleshooter, because that's very kin to what a therapist does with clients. And I think integrating the physical aspect, fitness, with the mental health and therapy is all part of self-care. So I think it's a good conversation for our audience members to just hear it. It's important and it's a good thing to participate in a very well-rounded experience when you're looking at self-care.
Right. I mean, if you look at, Chinese medicine philosophy, it would always speak to, physical ailments or physical problems are really more emotionally based. And so even when I'm dealing with athletes and fixing their physical issues, there's still something I'm looking at from a deeper level, whether it's emotional or psychological, the reason why they're having these issues. So something really kind of fundamental, you know, if a person athlete is standing kind of round shouldered, then I'm going to see there may be some self-esteem issues or something else going on. So how I talk to them and how I coach them is still going to be related to their body language. And so that's always something that's very integral that maybe people in my business don't do all the time, but I think it's very important that you look at the whole person kind of globally and then try to address issues and movement problems from that standpoint, not just, run faster or whatever else you may say to them.
Yeah, that's interesting because in therapy, we know about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and the way that you think is sometimes the way that you feel or manifests itself in your body. And then also we know for the clinicians who are listening about psychosomatic reactions, psycho meaning the mind, somatic meaning the body, you know, however you think or feel, sometimes it manifests itself into your body. So oftentimes with my clients, I'll say, you know, if I'm really nervous, the emotion is the nervousness or the anxiety, and then my heart begins to beat really fast, or maybe I'll have sweaty palms, and that's my body reacting to the way I feel. So I think it's really interesting that you're talking about even the composition or the disposition of an athlete. Just from looking at them, you can kind of assess maybe they're having a down day, or like you said, maybe the self-esteem, or, you know, maybe they may be anxious or nervous about a game or something that's coming up. So I think that's really interesting how these two professions kind of parallel each other.
Right. That's why there's psychology. Sorry, Chet, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's just very connected, but go ahead.
Oh, I mean, that's why there's sports psychologists, you know, who deal with athletes in those situations. And that's why there's also, you know, somatic movement therapy that deals with, you know, mental health issues or people having struggling in that, you know, part of their life. So I do think that things are mirrored in each situation, curriculum that can be, you know, carried over from one to the other. So.
Absolutely. So Tracy, before we get out of here, you know what? We really want to know a question. What do you do for self-care?
Since people say I'm very bougie,
yes. Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah, all those things apply to me. Absolutely. You know, I eat a certain way, you know, so my nutrition's, you know, dialed in for what works for me. You know, I take vitamin supplementation, that kind of thing. I exercise when I can. Right now, I'm just really busy, but when I do, it's usually yoga. I love bike riding. It's my passion. I also believe in meditation. I think you got to take time for that. But then I also do the stuff that's, you know, considered pampering. So I like my mani-pedis and my eyebrows done.
The two of you, Danielle. The two of you.
I love it.
So Danielle, we have to have a spa day. That'll be great. Have a spa day.
That would be so cool. I absolutely love this. And I also love that you are a guy talking about mani-pedis and about eating well and exercise and yoga and bike riding and all these things that help us from the inside out, like literally physically from the inside out, that impacts our emotions to make us feel really good, to feel really pampered and like relaxed and chill. I absolutely love your self-care routine.
And he forgot one important thing.
What was that?
A good glass of wine or champagne. What do you mean? You live for that.
Listen, I mean, they say one glass or two glasses of wine, but I figured if I multiply that out, I'll be even better from that experience. So yeah, I'm a wine snob as well. So yeah, it all fits in my personality.
Yes, it does.
Wow, this is so great. Tracy, I really, really enjoyed you. I think we enjoyed you. I think our audience enjoyed this interview here, just about movement and even about this self-care and about health management. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we go, can you also tell our audience, is there a place where they can either look you up, or is there a place that they can contact you, or even read a little bit of information about you before we go?
Thanks, Danielle. I have a website, peelsportsperformance.com. I'm on all the social media outlets. So Twitter at Tracy Peal Speed, Instagram Tracy Peal, Facebook is Tracy Peal or Tracy Peal Speed. So I am out and about in the world, and you can find me. But I appreciate you guys wanting me to come on, and Danielle, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm getting ready to schedule that spa day.
Yes.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure with my favorite human being on the planet to see her. So.
Oh, thank you, Tracy. Wendy, what are your thoughts before we go, and then let everybody know what we got coming up next?
Sure. Again, thank you to my big brother. Yay! So happy you were able to get on. Yes, hit him up at his social media website. He is a phenomenal coach. And I'm not just saying that because I'm related to him. He is very good, and I've seen the results of athletes he's worked with and what they can achieve. So thank you again for taking time out, Trace. We're going to head rounding off our month of self-care. We are spotlighting our CEO, Vera Kurdian. We're going to ask her some self-care questions. We know she's a workaholic, so I'm really looking forward to hearing how she takes care of herself and what she thinks is important for her employees as well.
Me too. I'm looking forward to that. As we have said already, Mr. Tracy Peal, thank you so much for joining us. This is Danielle Young with my co-host Wendy Grier. This is Making a Difference in Mental Health. We're always striving to make a difference in mental health. We will see you next time.